My name's Jake. I wanted to tell you, make this message, because if anything happens to me and any of my friends, somebody needs to know what's going on. I can't tell you where I live or my last name. You just have to trust me that what I'm talking about is real. This is a real place, a real town. It may even be your town.
Welcome to Thoughtspeak, a podcast dedicated to the discussion and review of K.A. Applegate's 1996 world phenomenon book series, Animorphs. My name is Mitchell.
And my name is Coleman.
And we are here today to bring you a very special book in this Animorphs continuity, so to speak.
A mega book.
A mega good time will be had by all in Megamorphs number 4. That's coming up, but first, hey, like we always do, I just gotta take a moment, folks, to tell you about how great our Patreon supporters are, and thank them individually, because they make this show possible. Let me tell you.
A mega thank you.
It's a mega-sized thank you for sure. And it goes out to Ben Freeman, Noah Troutman, Jeremy, Amanda Mimic. What? Oh, that's a new one, I think. Amanda, welcome aboard on this mega episode.
You surprised us.
Well, no, I do see. I got the emails. So Jennifer Baker, hey, thanks a lot. James Miola, Kendra, Kevin Scholastic. I'm going to stop saying your name. Kevin K. Kevin K. Graith, Tony Pazak, David C., Kelly Brown, Josh Blount, Andrew Walker, our friend, Daniel Martinoli, Nita Labrada-Cafaro, Tim Aheen, Sorrent Joyce, Michael Blemick, and our big shot, big contributor, Mr. Steven Adams. Thank you all very much for participating in our Patreon, keeping the podcast going long after the Megamorph series concludes, or the Animorph series concludes.
All right. Well, I would like to. I'd like to continue this hot streak of this beginning of the episode, and read a listener email. How do you feel about that?
I love listener emails even more when my co-host surprises me with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just checked the email while you were reading off the Patreon subscribers, so
thanks for paying attention.
But no, really, thank you guys. This email comes from Josh Blount, who's a big support of the show. He emails pretty often. Not often.
Oh yeah,
enough,
we tight.
Or
we
too
tight.
often. Who knows? Anyway, he says, "Hey guys, great episode. Was a little sad that I wasn't a guest host. Throwing a little flack at us right there. Sure.
You'll be on the next one."
That being said, Andrew was a fantastic guest. The chemistry was great between the three of you, and I really enjoyed it. I do have a few things about the episode that you guys might have missed.
Uh-oh.
It was mentioned several times that there hadn't been a morph allergy problem before this book, but no one mentioned Rachel's crocodile.
You know what? I actually was going to mention that after we got done recording and later in the thing. It crossed my mind, but
I feel like it's a different case scenario. It's not like we were discussing in the last book, but.
Well, yeah, it's obviously
it should have been brought
scenario.
up. Should have been brought up. While she isn't allergic to morphine itself, it was clear that she was allergic to the morph of a crocodile. Just an interesting note for Morphlore. Hashtag Morphlore.
Yeah, always expand that Morphlore.
I think it was Coleman who mentioned that he hadn't read most of the books in the 40s, and I can honestly say that some of them are my top 5, maybe even top 3 books. The revelation and the diversion are absolutely amazing in every way. I'm pumped to hear what you guys have to say on those books. Keep it up, and give me a shout if you ever need another guest host. And then he listed his phone number. I assume he wants some saucy late-night host from the host of Thoughtspeak.
You're gonna night chat him?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
hey, Josh.
Josh is a Patreon subscriber, and the day may come yet where we could be having him on the show. I'm not gonna rule it out. I need to hear from you. I need an audio clip, Josh.
Hey, Josh, it's like those famous SNL editions, man. Just because you weren't picked this time doesn't mean you're not going to go off and become some huge comedy star, all right? So follow your dreams.
You could be our David Spade. I don't know what that means, but...
I don't know. David Spade was on the show.
Yeah, you know what? Shut up.
He made it.
What are we even talking about anymore? Emails, thank you. Yes. Was there more to that, or...
Nah, but just found the one.
Okay, no, great user input. I love it. Thank you all. I feel like it's been a while since we've mentioned iTunes ratings and reviews are extremely important, and it seems like there's been a decrease in activity on that front.
A mega lull.
A little bit, yeah. It doesn't seem like we're quite reaching that new audience pull. And it might have something to do with, our lull and release schedule recently. But, we'll make up for that.
Yeah, it really does. I think we're at an interesting time in the podcast where we're heading into the 40s and possibly the end of the series. And you might think, like, oh, I don't have to leave an iTunes review. Maybe they're going to wrap this thing up. I can tell you that there is a lot more content coming. And if you want other people to check out Thoughtspeak, if you want us to grow, if you want us to expand, possibly even past Animorphs, those iTunes reviews are going to push us in the right direction. And they just help us know that the audience is out there and makes us want to put out another episode and just get back to you guys quick. And we really appreciate any of those you can do. So they're super important to us. Mega important.
Let's just say that every Patreon subscriber we get helps to morph the show, into something. Help me. Where am I going with this?
Hashtag Patreon Morphlore.
Oh, God, that wasn't where I was going with it. You're bad at metaphors like I am, but it's okay. The point being, Patreon subscribers are helpful, and we'd love to keep the show going as long as we possibly can with your support. Boom.
As are iTunes ratings and reviews, which is what we were actually talking about.
Oh yeah. Which is all the plugs, everything in there with the guest or the email. Wow, this has been a great episode so far. Let's wrap this up.
Start to this mega episode.
Totally. Did I even say the title of the book yet?
Megamorphs number 4. This is in the time of the Back to the
in the time before Back to the Dinosaurs secret of Elfangor's gold.
Watch Animorphs on TV.
We've got Megamorphs number 4, Back to Before. Ooh.
Which I always thought was a cool title. I mean, it kind of is one of those titles that's like, it's not grammatically great.
I think
not doing a lot there.
I think we should go ahead and just talk about how, in my opinion anyway, I think this is the most beautiful cover we've ever gotten in the series.
Yeah, it's pretty rad. I mean, if you're just walking through your Walden books, your Scholastic Book Fair.
It looks like a band cover, like a CD, like an album, like a Christian rock album or something, but still.
Oh, yeah. Like, if there was a dove instead of a hawk, like, yeah, you'd be rocking the Holy Trinity right here.
For sure.
No.
Audio adrenaline.
It looks like our little Animorphs have grown up, and they're dealing with some end-of-the-world scenarios. I would say, if you didn't know what this was, you'd be thinking, like, oh, is the series, like, coming to an end? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, potentially. It looks like a game changer because up to this, the Animorphs covers had always been iconic, bizarre kid-to-animal transformations with, a couple weird-looking centaur alien thrown in here and there. But this one, we get a full cast picture. I can't recall if there's been a full cast picture yet on any of the books so far. I know Megamorphs 1. Megamorphs 1 had the kids, like, and half their faces turned to animals.
Megamorphs 1 did, and so did Megamorphs 3.
No, they've all just been, like, face shots. Wait, what was 3?
I thought for sure 3 had all of them on the front. Maybe not.
I'm not looking at my collection right now, and I realize that I should pull up a Google Chrome window with these book covers on it. Gosh darn it.
Well, while you're looking for that, I'll keep talking about it. I do want to say that, like, it's nice to see them in, like, a little older looking. Looks like they're all around, like, 15.
Yeah. Oh, the character models are definitely at the most spot on point, I think, for all the characters, for sure. And by the way, the Megamorphs 3 was the super awkward art where Tobias looks like a freaking 28-year-old weirdo, and they're all, like, just awkwardly posing.
Yeah,
seriously,
they're all there.
Google it; it's awkward. This is by far the best iteration, I believe, of the team.
I will say that, I mean, it is somewhat relevant to this book, but again, I'm going to bring this up later in the episode. There are some weird connections, I feel like, between this book and book 41, The Familiar. And I almost feel like this cover could have also worked for that one, because you have like the ruins of their city and like the earth cracking up.
Yeah, that's a weird choice to have them.
I mean, I guess it's
there.
implying that, you know, like this book does lead to some end of the world scenario, kind of. But again, it feels much more like it fits the next book in the series, not the Megamorphs book. But it looks cool, and, you know, I'm on board. Why not?
Sure. The more I think about it, the more it bothers me that they put Tobias the bird on it when Tobias the human is also there.
No, that doesn't bother me.
I don't know why.
Symbolic.
It's just weird. It's the same character.
It's cool looking.
But you can, I believe that, okay, I don't know. Is Tobias just like crossing his arms there and that's his hand? Or is that Rachel's hand because she's gripping Tobias like by the arm?
No, he's crossing his arms, and she's got her hands like on his back, I would assume.
Oh, I guess I do kind of see her hand.
Her left hand. Yeah, her left hand
on his shoulder. It looks so much better though if that were her hand and she was like holding his arm. Like that'd really make
Interesting choice to put Tobias in like a middle centered point of the crowd. You know, you get Jake off to the left side, like he's, you know, not that important.
He's looking like a Gap model or something over there. Him and Marco rocking their like black tees and, you know.
I like this Cassie. Is this a new Cassie model? This looks more how I picture her, I feel like.
I don't know if it's a new one or if she just kind of cut her hair, you know, to super short. But no, this looks more like a genuine like Cassie. Are we ready to go inside? Are we ready to unfold?
Oh, I'm unfolding right now.
Oh, I'm unfolding too. Okay. So this inside insert is so cool. It actually does fold out into like 3-page segments, and we get near full body images of all the characters, the main cast.
This is a medium long shot or a cowboy shot in film industry terms.
And they all wore their coolest animal t-shirts.
Yeah, no, it is funny that Cassie, Jake, Rachel, and Marco do look like they just like got their shirts at Goodwill.
No, yeah,
animal prints.
Yeah, it looks like they're Jake especially. I think I've seen that tiger shirt or something similar to it at Goodwill.
It's like a t-shirt you get at like a Busch Gardens amusement park.
Oh yeah, I can easily see Busch Gardens up top of the logo there. The only reason Tobias is. Passes that is because his wings slightly extend off his body. But other than that, and I felt it was an odd choice to go with Marco's Cobra morph instead of, say, his gorilla. But I think the gorilla wouldn't have stood out as well against his shirt, and that's probably why they didn't go with it.
Yeah, it's like he morphed a Cobra a couple times, right? Let's throw that on there.
And I really expected to have them do a Cobra morph in this book because of that, and I was very deceived.
Yeah.
This is like the first. This is the first book where there's no morphing, isn't it?
There's morphing.
Besides Axmorph's human, but
Axmorph's human. You got some morphing at the very beginning. You've got Marco showing up as a gorilla morph
briefly at the end, and it's just for comedic effect, basically. So on a technicality, okay, this book escapes that. But other than that, the models look great. It's a great cover. This insert's awesome. Rachel's looking. I don't know. I think the Rachel model, if anything, looks way more different than what we've seen thus far.
Yeah, I like it. It's like her transitioning out of that kind of like model-esque role at the beginning of the series.
Yeah, exactly.
You can more serious.
You can still tell that she's pretty, but she doesn't look like a dazzling model by any means.
Yeah, no. I think these are all new kid models, and I like them. I think they're all pretty fitting.
If I hadn't been keeping up with the Tobias changes, this would come as a very big surprise to me, especially if you were to look at Megamorphs 3 Tobias compared to this. Holy crap, the difference is immense.
Huh. I'll take your word for it.
No, look up Tobias. I can't believe you don't remember us making fun of Tobias on the cover of Megamorphs 3. Our listeners remember that. I'm sure.
Create create content real quick while I look it up.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sorry, Andrew, you're out there listening right now, but this is the short-haired Marco that I'm led to believe you hate so much. So,
oh yeah. I feel like Elfinger's secret maybe when they fired all of these models.
yeah, isn't it?
Tobias looks like earlier Marco, just minus the Hispanicness.
Right.
But he also kind of looks like he's grown a mustache already, and he might be like a gang member, like a middle school gang member. And then Jake looks like he just raided his dad's closet. Wow, yeah, that's pretty rough.
It was bad times, and I'm pretty sure you said the exact same jokes, like, in that episode.
They don't get old.
Well, anyway, I think we both really like it. It's weird that on the... I don't get that whole, like, destroyed city kind of angle on this. It's pretty deceiving, but...
Yeah.
It's just meant to feel off-putting, I guess.
It's early in the episode, but I'll go ahead and put it out there. I feel like the Familiar was supposed to be Megamorphs number 4.
Oh, yeah!
They might have gotten further into producing this book before they switched it out.
I was going to save my comments, comparing the Familiar and this until I've actually read the Familiar, but I'll comment on it now, good sir, since you have done the same, and just say that I'm kind of, after reading this one, feeling like, kind of wishing that the Familiar had been the one they'd done as a Megamorphs. And this is a single one-off.
It makes sense, because as much as I like the Familiar, it's a little wackier, whereas this is a more serious book. So I like that this is Megamorphs. I feel like this relates to the first Megamorphs book more, where it had kind of like a just blockbuster feel to it, which also the Familiar kind of does, but the Familiar feels like Fifth Element, whereas this is Independence Day.
Yeah, but not to give my review away too soon or anything. This one, to me, felt like just an amnesia story. Really.
What?
A super complicated amnesia story.
I mean, you could see it that way, but I disagree with you wholeheartedly.
At its core, that's what I felt was the exact same
Megamorphs
driving
book.
force as. But you know what? That speaks to nothing about how I felt about the book. We're gonna actually go through it now. You want to read the back, good old buddy old pal?
I do. It is my turn.
That'll shut you up and keep you talking.
What would you do?
You read the back. I just
you won't shut up.
Yeah, because I'm trying to coordinate with you. I just want to read the one line in the middle.
Okay.
Proceed.
It's weird. What would you do if you had the opportunity to change your life? Not just where you live or who you hang out with, but your past, present, and future. Sounds like it might be pretty cool, right? Sounds like this book's trying to sell me drugs. Well, that's what Jake thought. He thought it might be easier if the Animorphs had never existed, if they'd never met Elfinger, if they had all had the chance to be normal kids.
Jake gets his wish.
But things aren't quite as simple as they seem. Just because the Animorphs no longer exist doesn't mean the Yeerks no longer exist. Except now, Jake, Rachel, Tobias, Cassie, and Marco, they don't even talk about Axe.
No.
Can't morph. They don't even know the Yeerks are out there, and it's not such a wonderful life. Hint towards what this book is based off of.
Very, very poignant. But what are they going to say? Not the Animorphs, and parentheses, and not Axe.
And not Axe.
So, yeah, there you have it. That's, in essence, an amnesia story.
I disagree, but we'll go into it. I want to jump into this opening, but before we jump into this opening, I want to talk a little bit about a little project that I've had ruminating in my skull since near the beginning of this podcast. And it goes back to talking about our Patreon a little bit, but I don't want it to be some big plug. But the beginning of this book directly inspired what I think could be an amazing teaser for a live action version of the Animorphs. Something I've already scripted and written, and we've already put as a goal on our Patreon. If we get up to, I think it's like...
I didn't agree to that.
You wrote it.
It was a long time ago. That needs to be updated.
No, I like it as a goal. If we ever get to something crazy like $1,000 Patreon subscription, overall, if we can overall have enough subscribers to our Patreon that we get to like $1,000 an episode, I've put as a goal that we will put into production a live action teaser for a Animorphs probably movie. Not that we'd be making the movie or anything, but the teaser is literally like you see like a really messed up office environment. So you got like panels hanging from the ceiling and wires and like overturned desks.
Oh my god! Dude, are you going to describe this whole thing?
Oh, I'm going into it. It's quick, but I'm going into it. It's important because it was directly inspired by the beginning of this book. But you have it's related to our podcast. It's one of our goals on Patreon. So you got like this messed up office environment. You got alien blood splashed around or whatever, and out of nowhere you see a wolf come into frame, and it's like dragging its back legs. It's obviously hurt. You're hearing it like whimper a little bit, and it's like moving. It's like you got a tracking shot of it moving through all these bodies and humans, and maybe you see like a Hork-Bajir blade sticking out of something, and it's just obviously this huge battle has just happened, and this wolf is just like dragging itself through. It managed to drag itself into this elevator. And then you cut to this busy bottom floor lobby of this office building, tons of people running around or whatever, and you've got doors open. Cassie walks out. She appears. There's blood all over the elevator, but she looks clean. She walks out of the elevator, mingles with the crowd.
Noticeably human.
Yeah, noticeably human, where the wolf once was, people. And walks in the crowd and gets lost, and you pull out into a big jib shot and cut to credits.
My one contribution to that is as she turns and walks like into the crowd, the camera cuts to behind her, and you see the wolf tail suck back up into her.
No, we would not do that.
Yep, that's my one contribution. Okay, so whatever.
I think it'd be super easy to do and to get people excited about Animorphs and the idea of a movie.
Okay.
I pitched it to Michael Grant too.
Absolutely. Oh God, not yet. God, don't bring him into this just yet. You get to make one, and then we'll raise enough money that I'll make my own idea.
Yours will just be weird and turn people off of the Animorphs.
Yeah, probably. But it's going to be artsy and awesome.
Look, nobody wants the animated Cutie Honey Animorphs crossover. All right.
First of all,
nobody's looking for
everybody doesn't know that everybody wants it. And secondly, I don't have an idea just offhand waiting to fire off. I haven't been holding on to the same idea for the past 4 to 5 years. Unwilling to change any details about it.
When you hit perfection, there's no reason to change it.
So they say. Until they make it. Ooh. Gauntlet has been thrown down, Patreon supporters. Give us the money.
That's true. Anyway, we can talk about the book now, if you'd like.
Well, like you said, I mean, this whole thing starts with this particularly bloody battle it's very gruesome. We've seen several like it before, and there's really no context given to this one. It's just, Jake's not having a good time being the old Animorph leader.
No, he's not, and it's right after this battle that was really hard. I love when books open like this, in the middle of like some mission that they succeeded, but was really hard on the group. And you have, he doesn't even know if Cassie was alive. Like, he thought, last time he saw her, she was backed into a corner. Rachel is, even though the fight's over, Rachel's just howling and swiping at nothing.
Yeah.
Because she's lost in her rage.
Marco was close to dying as well, I believe. And in particular, they have to deal with a dying controller. And it's just a nasty situation that sticks in Jake's mind. The guy, kind of begging for help, and them not really being able to provide any kind of help or comfort to these people that are really just victims in this whole war. And
does it say how they handled that guy? Did they just leave him to die, or
yeah, they left. They
take him out.
Had to leave.
Huh.
The Yeerk couldn't get out of the guy's head because he said it was blocked, so it's probably some kind of internal bleeding.
I guess, he didn't see Marco,
something.
so he's not a witness.
And, no, they just left him to die. They had to, unfortunately, because they had to bail at that moment. So Jake in particular, took this really hard. He's not having a good time. He's feeling very powerless and unable to actually make changes, I feel like, in this war. This has the benefit of coming after, those last couple books we read. And after reading this thing, I really felt like, just in general, Jake is being tested a hell of a lot, more than a lot of the other team members lately.
Well, it's also just the fact that we have Kay Applegate coming back in, and she obviously cares a lot more about Krayak and this Krayak-Jake antagonistic relationship than any of the Ghost Riders, or they may not even have let the Ghost Riders touch it as a topic. But she obviously wanted to bring that back, and it's a super interesting way to do it, where it's like, hey, we'll solve all your problems, kid. Just, get in bed with the devil.
Yeah, that's very true. We always love, reappearances of Krayak and Elemist. Lately, it feels more and more like the Drode is just becoming, a stand-in for Krayak. Not a whole lot of advancements are being made on the plot. They just kind of pop in and make plots happen and pop out.
I do want to, just for half a second, say what a breath of fresh air this book was. We're deep into the ghost-written books, and we've had some really good ones. I mean, we've had ones that we've really enjoyed. So it's not to say anything about the quality of them, but it just feels different coming back into a Kay Applegate book, where it's just like, oh, this is so streamlined and clear in what it's saying, and it's like, we're back into these characters like they haven't felt like this in a while. Like, it's extremely well written, and there's a reason that she is now winning awards left and right. Like, it feels great.
Yeah, every character is spot on. I mean, there's no qualms about the quality of this thing. This is the genuine artifact, folks.
Yeah, just the writing style is just, I love it. It's great.
Exactly. So, plot-wise, this is really where the things kick off. After, the battle's over and Jake's just got to return to normal civilian life. He's laying in bed at night, and he's really tormented just about the day's events. And this is when the Drode decides to pop in on him for a little bit and kind of sort of tempt him into cutting some sort of deal with Krayak. He's not very specific in what he's going to do. Yeah, exactly. And I think in a mistake here is Jake not asking for more specifics of what he's agreeing to.
Well, he caught Jake pretty vulnerable. That was the point of this. And but I love the request. What he says specifically, he's like, I'll solve your problems. I'll get rid of the leadership role that you have on your shoulders. You just have to say one word. Oh, wait. 2 words. First one's Krayak, second one's please. And that's a cool line.
Exactly. And he knows exactly how to tempt Jake. He knows what to say to him to get him to eventually take the shortcut out. And
kudos to the book for not letting us hear Jake say that. Like, not actually showing Jake say it. Just say, like, telling him what to say, and then Jake thinking about it, and then cutting back.
Right, yeah, and this is how Drode convinces him, by pointing out his teammates' flaws and really just kind of stirring Jake's fears about, what he's going to eventually lead his friends into. So he says...
Really, Cassie in the cave, the metaphor, that's pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely, but I'm going to read what the Drode says to him.
Okay.
This is after Jake says, "Go away," I said through gritted teeth. How long till your cousin Rachel loses her grip? You know the darkness is growing inside her. How long till Tobias dies? A bird! How can he ever be happy? How long till Marco is forced to destroy his own controller mother? Will he survive that, do you think? How long, Jake, till you kill Tom? Then what dreams will come, Jake the Yeerk killer? Boom! He's like tackling all of his insecurities,
Yeah, and covering the Animorphs in a really cool way, like kind of updating us on where they should be at and what's going on.
Exactly, and you could almost call this foreshadowing, I guess. He made no allusion to Cassie there, though, which would seem to imply that he has no prior knowledge of Cassie and her superpower that's revealed at the end of the book.
Well, not just that, but also just the fact that Cassie, even at this point in the series, is one of the Animorphs who could get out of the situation scot-free and not horribly tormented by everything.
Sure, yeah. I don't know what the reasoning is there. Maybe he just didn't have anything. I mean, he very easily could have said, how long until, the only girl you've ever loved is murdered in front of you or something.
How long until you and Cassie finally get to, second base? That's been going on for a while.
We've been watching for a long time, Jake.
Me and Krayak, it gets lonely on Saturday nights. We just watch you guys. It's like a reality show.
Play Grand Theft Auto 3 next.
Oh, good relevant time frame for which Grand Theft Auto they'd be on.
I took a guess, and yeah, it seemed right. I think
it might be
right.
before then. It might still be before then, but close.
Sure. So, plot-wise, I mean, what happens here is that Krayak basically removes the Animorphs from the fight with the Yeerks, takes them back in time. It really resets the timeline back to before, like that plot would imply, or that title would imply. So this is a starting from the beginning of the invasion, like number 1, the invasion, as well as the actual invasion, and seeing what happens if the team didn't go to that construction site and meet that dying alien on that fateful night. So that's what we get.
We're back at the mall, and we're seeing. I love that we see the beginning of the invasion play out from Cassie's side of things.
Yeah.
So we're seeing her being all nervous about Jake and what she's wearing and how her relationship with Rachel. It's just great seeing that other side of the coin as we go into the construction site, and they're choosing to walk the other way, walk the long way around, the safe way.
Oh, it was barely even mentioned. I actually appreciate how, they didn't dote on it for too long. Oh, should we or should we not go to the construction site? It was we chose to go the other way. And then boom.
Tobias is still looking up at the sky and notices, not accidentally, but Elfinger's ship come down, but he just thinks it's a meteorite because I guess they're pretty far away at this point.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how they avoid the event and avoid becoming the Animorphs. And
if there was a discussion on whether a story similar to the Familiar or this one should have been a Megamorphs, I'm glad this one turned into a Megamorphs, simply for the fact that this story I think works absolutely the best because we're jumping around between the Animorphs, seeing all of them and their day-to-day lives without being Animorphs.
Yes, but you know what? We didn't consider the obvious choice. There just should have been more Megamorphs books, okay? Both of these stories, this one and the Familiar, should have been Megamorphs, and there should have been way more Megamorphs. And there should have been way more Chronicles, but boy, the Applegates were tapped out by these last couple books, because, I mean, they really wrung the series out for all of its genius, here in the last 15 or so.
Mm-hmm. Which I think, if they weren't on such a crazy schedule, there's so many more stories they could have told. The schedule is what really held them back. I don't think they were out of ideas. I just don't think, if you're putting out a book every 4 months, how could you possibly come to the best idea in that time frame?
No, yeah, totally, 100%. If this were to get a modern day reboot, it should be reimagined, I believe, into longer formatted, more teen oriented stories.
I think you could still do chapter books. I don't think it necessarily has to be longer, but it's just a different time frame is all I'm saying. Maybe you put 6 months between books instead of 4 months.
Oh, sure, yeah. And maybe make them, 30 chapters instead of the standard 22 to 24 we've been getting.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. So this book really just picks up, with the kids going on with their normal lives, or trying to anyway. Tobias is kind of an outcast, as we knew, at his home. He's staying with his uncle currently, and as we know, his uncle's a bit of a alcoholic, as well as very negligent, possibly abusive. And we get to follow him through his daily life and really see him getting bullied at school.
Yeah, I mean, it's Tobias is pretty rough in this book, seeing not only what his life was before the Animorphs, but seeing how it didn't get any better for him being out of the Animorphs. Like, it's funny that he looks up to Jake and thinks Jake is like the life that he would want, and Jake is the selfish one who made this choice to go back to his old life because he had it pretty well. Like, Tobias had it horrible. Like, you can't think of, even though Tobias is a pretty humble person, a good kid, as you see when he says, like, oh, other kids have it worse. Other kids, unless they're, like, starving or homeless, they don't have it much worse than Tobias.
Oh, you're right. I didn't even consider that upon reading this the first time, that Jake really, really screwed Tobias over in throwing him back into his previous life, one that he hated, and, in fact, is responsible for him becoming a controller.
Yeah, easily.
What a dick.
But yeah, it's Tobias as someone who had a rough middle school. Tobias's story hit close to home, and it's horrible. And like the kind of people that the sharing is trying to pick up. I love how this book makes the sharing more dangerous, because it's kind of become a joke in these ghostwritten books where there's a sharing meeting or whatever that they break up and attack or whatever, and the sharing is just a background thing. But this book, I think, sells the sharing and the Yeerk invasion in a serious light and tone, as like Visser did. This very serious like plan to entrap humans and possibly get some voluntary hosts, and how that could work. I love that this book goes into that. Yeah,
the coolest thing I think about this book is that it shows us the entire process from start to finish of how they, lure unsuspecting people in, and if it were a maniacal cult, that'd be one thing entirely. Awful situation. But the fact that it just so happened to be the 0.01% of cults that has a brain infesting alien, really even more unfortunate for these folks.
Yeah, where Tobias gets knocked on his butt and he's hanging out in a puddle of piss, and just at the one of the lowest points in his life, and you just got a guy walk up to him and say, "Hey, you don't have to be treated like this. This doesn't have to be how your life is. Come check us out," and just hands him a sharing business card. That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'd like to point out that these two sharing randos, I think they were in the bathroom at the time of his beating and did nothing to prevent it necessarily.
And that's smart.
That's only
so smart.
Well, yes, of course, they have to let him experience, that really low, and then that's when they swoop in and make their move to invite him.
But it's not just that. It's a whole nother level of smart too, because people in the sharing, Yeerks, your controllers, they don't want to bring attention to themselves. So they're not going to break up this kid, or this fight with this kid, possibly get suspended themselves, and bring any kind of attention towards them. So they can both, A, have Tobias experience that, have him be at a super low point where they could then hop on to try to grab him, and then B, stay out of the limelight themselves, be in the shadows, not really a part of anything. It's just stellar writing.
Yeah. Absolutely. He's bullied by these two kids in particular. They get names, but it's just for this book, really. And yeah, he this is where his venture into the sharing starts. It also jumps around characters, so I guess we'll just kind of bounce around the plots as it goes. But this is where Cassie, is living her normal life, and she starts hearing acts. Well, she doesn't know what she's hearing, but we know it's acts, and this is just where she's having visions and everything, and memories and thoughts about Animorph stuff that she shouldn't be knowing about.
So cool that we're rolling through the first few books in just this one book. It's really cool to see Cassie getting the visions and the thought speak messages from acts. that she got in the message. That was an entire book of itself. Just a couple weeks after they would have become Animorphs.
Yeah.
Just really cool. Really cool to be experiencing that.
Very familiar events are unfolding here, but this time, she doesn't have that explanation as to what it is, so she can't go looking for it. She thinks she's going mad. And of course, Axe, is still trapped at the bottom of the sea in that Andalite dome ship that fell, and he's just kind of figuring out how the heck he's going to get out of there, if he should. He's wondering, what it's going to be like on the alien planet. He didn't even know about, humans or anything. He didn't spend much time doing his research again.
Yeah, I really also appreciate for this book that, we see Axe as part of the Animorphs, no matter what the marketing team says. We see him as a really important part of the Animorphs that kind of brings them into the cosmos side of things with the different alien... with the war and like the Andalites' relationship with the Yeerks, and he's just a vast information dump for them all the time, and he's a respected part of the Animorphs. But this book really puts into light that without the context of being with a bunch of humans who know nothing, Axe is just a kid who is not planning anything, is like kind of trying to stay ahead of the game military-wise, but again, he's a recruit, like doesn't know what he's doing. And I think this book really shows that in several ways. While he's still heroic and still doing his thing and really useful, he's just a dumb kid.
Yeah,
you
definitely
open
bring
warfare
up
with the Yeerks.
Very good point. His plans are so simplistic. He's just kind of like, I'll just.
He's not a leader. Like maybe he is at the end of the series when he has his own ship and he's a prince and everything. But right now and during the war, he needed Jake. He needed the other Animorphs to balance him out.
Yeah,
he's a warrior, not a leader.
In our last episode, we had a whole conversation about how he is very much that really dumb kid, and this definitely adds to that, I think. We got Tobias being courted now by the sharing, and one member in particular, Bill, I guess, is this guy that's kind of set up to be his guide or the guy that pulls him further into their clutches. And Bill loves to employ many of the classic tactics of a cult and luring Tobias in, working his magic, making him feel better about himself, telling him about how his life got better after he joined the sharing. And
so this is weird for me. So this is not a podcast that I want to get too deep into religion and discussing that, but I grew up in a church environment, and everything with the sharing, I'm like right on board. Like I know, like okay, yeah, they're doing this right. If you want to, now I'd like to think that most religions.
Hey there, kid, you're feeling down? I got the thing to pick you up.
Well, no, but like that. Like,
it's called the Bible.
Well, they have things like church camp and things like that where you have the fun up front. You have the things you want to do, the pool, the basketball, the hanging out with your friends. And then, hey, come back to this back room and we'll tell you a little bit about God.
Yeah, exactly.
And I come from a religious background. I'm still religious. So I don't want to say that I'd like to think that religious organizations, they come from a point of actually wanting to help people, not put a slug in their brain. But
that's debatable.
But cults and organizations like the Sharing, they've preyed on that. They've taken that format because it works. It does bring people into the fold and gives them a community. And once you have community, you really can get people to stand behind whatever you're trying to do, whether it's for good or, for taking over the human race.
Exactly. So there's a lot of positives about cults, right? But it's super fucking cool to see this whole process of them, luring this vulnerable kid in, and the fact that it's Tobias, a character who's very near and dear to so many people's hearts, and just knowing that this great tragedy is going to befall him. Wow, it's powerful stuff.
This is a fan favorite character. This isn't like, there's no. I don't want to name an Animorph that people don't really like. Everybody has an Animorph they like.
This is like if David got taking over.
No, David's awesome. I will start the David fan club right now.
Yeah, but do you think David should be a controller? Knowing what he knows.
David would be some dumb kid who's like in the background. And David would be the kid who comes to the sharing, like spikes the volleyball illegally in somebody's face, like accidentally hurts somebody, and then like it tries to make excuses for why it was their fault. And then they try to make him to become a full member. He's like, no, screw this noise, I'm out. That would be David's sharing experience.
No, they would take him anyway, and because remember his dad was like a hotshot.
Yeah, the NSA, or the FBI or whatever.
Exactly.
But anyway, no, this is great to see. And Bill, I love the messaging. You got to be part of something bigger. It just works. It hits somebody like this who has nothing going on in their lives. And it's like, yeah, I'll be a part of something bigger. That's cool. I'm all for this.
Yeah, no, exactly. He's got a crappy life of solitude, basically, and then he comes to this place, and everyone's hanging out, having a good time. There's fun stuff to do. People are being nice to him for once. People actually want to talk to him and are interested in what he's saying. Like, he's having a good time because this is the opposite of his life. Unlike Jake, who has been brought along by his brother Tom, of course. He's just... I don't know. It doesn't work on Jake. His mind's always in a different place, and it just seems like a facade to him, I guess.
Well, Jake's also not a follower. He's not somebody who's just gonna stand in line and let people be heard or just go along with whatever the crowd's doing. Like he makes up his own mind on things. That's not the type of person that sharing wants or can really reach.
Yeah, totally. And Marco in this nightmarish Alternaverse is he's in another place entirely from the other characters, and him and Rachel are on this field trip to some damn museum, and
Marco trying to hook up with Rachel is a high point for the series.
This is purely like this is pure fan service, basically.
All you kids out there trying to write fan fiction, this is the type that works. Like, realistic, like these characters, their interactions together in the normal universe is antagonistic because they probably would get together if not for all the events that happened. Like, that's the type of relationship that works. Not Marco and Tobias, but only when he's in Bird Morph. Like, come on.
Exactly. It's like fan fiction, but better. They're like flirting it up, and just kind of into it, and everything's going smooth until like freaking plot takes a right turn, and Marco's mom walks in all of a sudden, and he flips out upon witnessing her. As
I love the change in attitude too, because you could have written this scene where Marco's still trying to like look cool to Rachel, but he's like freaking out of his mind. No, he absolutely does not care about Rachel or anything or what he was doing. His whole mindset changes to, oh my gosh, my mom's alive.
Yeah, well, absolutely. This is, the first time he would have seen her in the story-wise. Just like remembering back to the first time he saw her naturally in the normal timeline. He didn't know she was alive, man. We get a nice scene showing how Axe acquired that shark so long ago.
Cool. It was Axe messing around with dome ship functions and
it was cool. At the same time, it felt like that was one thing they added in when they decided to make this a Megamorphs book.
yeah, I can see that.
And then Marco and Rachel giving chase to Visor 1, and she's calling in extra goons and stuff on her phone the whole time. And by the end of this chase scene, they're in a shootout. Well, I mean, they're not shooting, but they're getting shot at by guns and ray guns, as they keep calling them.
Assume Dracon beams, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy that they would be that open with them shooting out in just some alleyway. But they really wanted. I guess it's a scary scenario for Visor 1. You're running, and then these kids out of nowhere start chasing you. You don't know why you were transported, so you have to assume that they transported you there or something. And who knows if she even got a good look at him enough to know that, hey, my son my host's son.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
Me.
I assumed that she knew it was Marco chasing her, and that's why she took off in the first place.
I feel like she couldn't have, because if she did, they would have come for Marco.
Oh, really? No, because she doesn't want to be seen by Marco, and...
Well, she doesn't want to be seen by Marco, but I'm saying, if she gets transported to Earth out of nowhere, doesn't know what technology brought her there or whatnot, and then her son, her host's son, starts chasing her, if she would have seen that it was Marco, her first call is the goons that she brought in who were shooting at them. Her second call would be Hork-Bajir to wait at Marco's house, to grab him and see what he knows. Why were you chasing me? How did I get to Earth? All that stuff. So I feel like she didn't see who it was.
What do you mean, how do I get to Earth? She was there because this is the point in the timeline when she would have arrived on Earth.
No, she got transported to Earth suddenly. They even talk about it at the end of the book. She was transported to Earth when she shouldn't have. She just appeared downtown, or in the museum or whatever.
Yeah, they're in the museum.
Suddenly, it's Cassie's influence on the storyline breaking apart. Cassie knowing something is wrong, started messing with the universe, and it brought Marco's mom to Earth suddenly.
That was not...
It's talked about very clearly in the end of the book.
Overly implied. I don't know about that.
The Droid flat out says it. Oh, okay, it'd be one of those times where I look up something in the book and prove you wrong. Go ahead.
Oh, is it? Talking. There might have been one sentence towards the end that I didn't understand. He said something about teleporting Visitor 1 to Earth.
Mm-hmm. Keep talking.
Either way, yeah, I do want you to show me this now. But I was under the impression that was just the time that she arrived for the her first appearance plotline, the old shark infestation idea. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. We'll find out. It was an unexpected turn, I thought. This particular tangent that the book went on, but.
Here we go. You ready?
Yeah, perfect.
This isn't just to prove you wrong. It's also to clear this up. I'm going to read this whole paragraph. This is from the end of the book, so spoilers, but, it's Megamorphs. We're going to jump around a little bit. The droid spat in disgust. You knew the girl was an anomaly. You knew she was sub-temporally grounded, and you knew that whatever timeline I built, her presence would eventually destabilize it. She knew from the start that the timeline had shifted. She felt it. I might as well have terminated the exercise then. I saw the sudden, inexplicable transportation of the mother. I thought, well, it's a glitch. The hands morphing to tiger. All the little breakdowns of logic and sequence, I still thought it might hold together.
Oh, okay. Holy crap. I wish you would have only read the particular reference that we were talking about, but whatever.
Well, I wanted to show how it tied into Cassie, and he was talking about Cassie.
Oh, sure. Okay, so there is that one line that clears that up. Okay.
Boom.
Weird, but... yeah, not what I expected. Anyway, we get another scene of, this book tends to follow Axe quite a bit. And he's always off, apart from the rest of the team. It's kind of neat, though, how they all ended up together anyway. Or, implying that they would have somewhat. So Axe is, underwater, and the bug fighters come for him, and he gets out in time, and he's got an underwater fight with some Texans, and just kind of swims away from it, feeling pretty confident.
Well, real quick, would they have ended up together anyway? Because this timeline is also distorted. Because Cassie knows something is wrong, there are several points where they meet up, or she's talking to them about something being wrong, that you could say changed this timeline too.
Oh yeah,
we don't really see a clean
up to a point. Up to a point. Probably this point right now, because Axe just got freed from the dome ship, and Tom is still trying to, convince Jake to come to another meeting of the sharing, and he actually caves, and goes to it and agrees on it. But this is when Cassie calls to talk to him about all this crazy stuff that's going down recently. And though he isn't able to get together with her then because of his aforementioned agreement with Tom, they just plan to get together later. So they go to a sharing meeting. And This is when Tobias, we finally get to see the whole plot come full circle with him. He decides, after having yet again another run-in with bullies, this time he gets the pleasure of being saved by a couple of sharing members who sort of... They had a very good timing here because they're in like a locker room or something, and those two bullies come back.
No, they're in the gym. Yeah.
And, it's during a class change, so people are kind of shuffling in and out. And the sharing members are really good about appearing quickly, solving the conflict, and in this case, it's just like threatening to murder one of the high school kids, and shuts the whole thing down right away, and then gets Tobias out of there, and really makes Tobias feel good, and just fills him with that dopamine that makes kids put space slugs in their heads.
Which this is the only thing that I'm not sure how it works with the rest of the series and what we've heard of the sharing. The fact that he says that Bill told him that you get a few times coming to the sharing, and then you have to decide whether you're a member, whether you want to become a full member or not. And if you don't, you get kicked out of the sharing. Now I wonder if there's another level to it.
I was gonna say that too. Where are their recurring members? Where are all these background people that are just hanging out? Do they have like host bodies on standby to just be like stand-arounds?
Well, no. So I think I was going to kind of go a different direction. Every time we hear the sharing having functions and stuff, there's always a ton of people who show up. There's people playing volleyball. There's people doing all this other stuff. I wonder if there's so you have people who just show up to the sharing to play basketball or to hang out with their friends or something, who have no interest in becoming members. But then someone like Tobias comes in, and those other people can probably come as many times as they want. They're just hanging out, and then maybe at some point they get a little more serious, and then they have this decision.
Coleman.
Tobias comes.
I can break it down for you. The sharing is like a pool, okay? There's varying depths to this pool. There are those that come and they only put their, toes in, and then they leave. But there are others, like Tobias, that start walking in, and they get out to the end where they can't touch the bottom. And then the metaphor ends, and they're stuck in a cult.
Well, I'm trying to break down the actual, how this works. And I think you're right in that metaphor. Tobias, other people just are, sitting on the side, and they're, playing with their feet in the water. And they can come back as many times as they want. And I think someone like Tobias, he is lonely. He's looking around. He gets, he gets meets Bill and gets tagged with him. He's someone who's in the shallow end. And if you're in the shallow end, either you're going to go to the deep end after a while or get out of the pool.
Or somebody's going to pull you in deeper, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But just logistically, I was trying to figure out the sharing based on what we've seen in the rest of the book.
Sure, and I'd like to point out that Tobias is still technically an outcast at these sharing meetings that he's attending because the only people he really interacts with are the ones that brought him. Similarly, Jake and Tom have a similar situation, and that's probably why Jake doesn't have any fun with it. Because I'm sure Tom immediately skedaddles to go do important Yerk stuff, and Jake's just like, wow, this is lame. But Tobias, he's got good old Bill there for support.
Good old Bill.
Bill's building him up through billiards. Oh my God, is that why they did that? Is that why they
that'd be
did that?
super clever if they did.
That has to be it. I didn't put it together until now. Because they do play. They put a lot of emphasis on pool.
They do
on billiards. Old Bill, the billiards man.
His name's probably not even Bill. It's just whatever game he's playing. If they were playing basketball, he would have been, "Hey, I'm Base. What up?
What?
I'm Bask.
I'm Base. You dumbass! You said the wrong ball."
What? No, I didn't.
You said Base at first.
Yeah, like BAS, like the basketball, bass, base. I was just trying to think of it on my feet.
You should have gone with a better one. You should have been like, they played foosball, and the guy said, "My name's Foos."
Foos. Is that better?
It's basically, he's Bill playing billiards.
I was obviously talking about the great game of basketball.
All right, Coleman, you got to pick a lane, buddy, with your jokes. All right?
I was referencing the Trey Parker, Matt Stone classic, Basketball.
I bet you don't even like that movie.
I love that movie, actually.
No, I love that movie. I own it on DVD. Do you?
I don't own it on DVD, but I don't own many DVDs anymore because it's a dead technology.
Oh, I'll go one step further. I own it on VHS.
That's just sad at this point.
Silence. Yeah, okay, sharing meeting. And like we said, Jake's, he's not having that great of a time. Tobias comes up and he's feeling real high. He's feeling full of himself. He's like, sup, man? I'm going to do it. I'm going to become a full member, man. I'm going to go full on brain slug, brah.
And Jake's like, I don't care.
Yeah, Jake's got a lot on his mind. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, if all of this stuff wasn't weighing on Jake's mind and he did have Tobias come up to him, and strike up a conversation and them actually forge a friendship, either Tobias wouldn't have become a full member or Jake might have delved further into the sharing as well.
I want to play out a scenario here for you.
Whoa, okay, do it.
This is what Megamorphs number 5 should be, if it had ever existed.
After the beginning?
Yeah, that's what we call it. It'd be a back to before, except the Yeerks don't exist. So how these characters interacted, I really like the idea that Jake and Cassie's burgeoning romance would have actually started. Like, him just going over to study with her, maybe they would have started dating, and just had a normal relationship. You'd have someone like Rachel, who's like this warrior woman waiting inside of her. She probably just would have become like a really career-oriented person. Like, nothing crazy, not killing
Gymnast / businesswoman.
Yeah, just someone who like throws themselves in their career or something. Tobias, I feel like he would have gotten low and low and low. And maybe him and Jake would have ended up friends. Maybe like Jake would have saved him again from bullies, like way down the line. Or or Tobias would have just found that weird friend group who plays like hacky sack in high school.
If I may interject, I'd like to imagine that Tobias would be the Sean to Jake's Corey Matthews.
Yeah, absolutely. With Marco in it, they become the trifecta, like a friendship. Or they just don't become friends. But Tobias finds other friends.
They really imply, especially in this one, that Marco just straight up never cared for Tobias.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't know. I like the idea of them all, without the Yeerk influence, without the Yeerks taking over the world. They still would have had these connections. But I guess also Tobias wouldn't exist if the Yeerks and the Andalites didn't. So.
Totally. I think the lead-up scene, in fact, that we get next of Tobias, like, going to the meeting room. Okay, we got counting me, we got 4 people here to become full members, whatever that means. And, it's like a random assortment. It's like a cop, a reporter, like a music producer dude. And Tobias is, like, the only kid, in fact, which he finds very odd, but we know why. And, they lead the reporter chick down, and then Tobias is, momentarily distracted by some meaningless dialogue, and then he's pulled off, and really, really just horrifying scene. Very powerful, I believe. I felt it, man. Reading this was like, oh, Tobias, if only you knew, get out of there. And I love the little nod to where, everybody's starting to feel these little glitches or ripples in the time stream. And he's like, I should be out flying, like grabbing a thermal. Like, this ain't right, Like,
yeah, like maybe if he would have had one of those glitches earlier, he wouldn't have gotten pulled into the sharing. Like, if you start questioning things earlier. But the fact that it happens right before he's about to be infested sucks.
That's true. it's too bad whenever he got bullied, like physically attacked, he never had any like glitches to like, I need to flap, I need to fly, I need to get out of here, Like,
yeah.
None of those scenes for poor Tobias.
I think the saddest thing, there's 2 sad things, one of which I didn't realize till just now. The first sad thing and how good the scene is he walks in, the woman who had just walked in before him, she has that, awesome break of character real quick where she glitches out a little bit from her Yeerk not being used to her host body yet. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then what sucks for Tobias is he's in this horrifying moment that changes his life forever, and the rest of the Yeerks in the room are indifferent. They're talking about statistics on voluntary hosts.
Yeah.
About, it's so indifferent to how horrified he is.
So cool.
And how terrified he is. And the second thing that makes it super sad is that, man, the son of Elfangor, this is what his life becomes. Just another Yerk host.
Of course.
Controller. It's terrible.
In a in a universe of coincidences, this is one that's not, I guess. I don't know.
This just puts a spotlight on the importance of a father figure in your life. Way to go, Elfangor.
I think this is probably one of, if not the best scenes from this book, gotta say.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do something now that I don't ever do.
Dramatic reading?
But I'm going to read the next line exactly from my notes because I liked it.
Whoa, you never do that.
So at this point in the story, Axe has spent some time amongst the humans now and even acquired some unknown human morph. He has, however, ended up in an insane asylum. And he's obsessed with the cookies that the shrinks were apparently giving him at one point, Oreos. And upon learning that, they're not going to give him any more cookies, he's like, "Well, screw this, and I'm out of here. I've learned all I need to know from TV."
He made a scene at the last cookie time.
Yeah. Well, that, and he also got totally spotted by somebody demorphing. Luckily, it was a crazy person who nobody believes anyway. So.
Again, Axe is just a kid and an idiot.
Totally. Oh, yeah. He would have given away his thing. Well, I mean, his whole plan in this book is just dumb.
Yeah.
But he decides to get out of there, and he's like, "Well, I'm just gonna go show the world an Andalite and see, if the Yerks come at me. See what happens."
Why don't you just do that in the street, or pick a busy place and do it? If you do it on TV, you're bringing the entire Earth, Yerk invasion force down on you.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know, to one specific point. I don't know. Like you said, it's very simplistic. It's just I'm gonna do the literal only thing I can because I don't know what the Yerks are up to. So I'm just gonna bring them to me and hope that I survive the encounter.
Yeah. Tobias is now feeling out being a host body. That's also pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
Meets his Yerk, Odret 177, who, unfortunately for Tobias, is in the middle of a Game of Thrones-esque plot.
Right? He got one of the worst Yerks you could have been assigned, unfortunately.
Easily. A guy lying about being from the Council of 13.
Right.
How long's that going to hold up?
Totally. They threw this plot, I think, way out of left field.
I love it, though. It's great.
No, it does. It speaks volumes about just the trials and tribulations that Yerks themselves go through. Because we're looking at this from the human perspective, and oh god, these creatures are so horrible. But if you turn it around and look at it from their perspective, there's so much drama behind the scenes and backstabbery, and
I love that you could literally. I don't know how many Star Wars books you've read, Mitch. I assume not that many.
All of them.
All of them. But you could take this relationship, and I'm not saying that Kay Applegate stole this, but this relationship between Visitor 3 and Visitor 1 is very similar to the Emperor and Darth Vader at the height of the Empire. And you have these minions that they're always sending to each other and trying to fool the other one or get them trapped in something, or the Emperor is always testing Darth Vader. And then just like Visitor 3, Darth Vader's someone who doesn't mess around with who's working for him. If you displease him, he's gonna lightsaber you through the face. So it's a really cool to see that relationship here in this random subplot of Megamorphs. It's great.
Yeah, I think the authors would appreciate that comparison you just made, buddy.
Yeah, well, they love Star Trek. I'm just throwing a little bit of the wars at them as well.
I'm sure they're a fan of the wars too, But yeah, Bill busts in to break up Tobias's big important meeting to tell the visitor about this Andalite that's just appeared on TV. And when Jake and Tom are hanging out at home, Jake sees Tom. First they see the broadcast on TV. A lot of the plot is quickly accelerated by convenient TV appearances in this book. Mm-hmm. So, of course, Tom's like, I got a jet. He makes a call, and he's on his way, and Jake's like, well, this is very odd behavior for my brother.
Well, not that. He thinks it's weird, and he follows him upstairs in kind of a goofy brotherly way. But the second he sees Tom put a gun in his back of his jeans, or what he thinks is a gun,
everything changes. Yeah, he just instantly is like, oh my god, he's up to no good.
Well, I love that he's still coming from a brotherly point though too. He's like, oh man, obviously Tom's just like into some stuff he shouldn't. I'm going to go with him,
right,
and stop him before he makes a mistake.
Sure, yeah, and so to that end, he Back to the Futures it and hops in the back of Tom's car as he hauls ass off to the dance.
With all the plots happening in this book, I wouldn't have been surprised if like Biff showed up at some point.
Kid, you gotta go back with me.
Oh, are you saying Old Man Biff, or is that your Doc impression?
That's my Old Man Biff.
Oh, nice.
Because he shows up and he's like, you gotta go back with me. And Jake's like, back where? And he goes, back to before. Hashtag I want that book. Hashtag I want that crossover. Ooh.
Oh, man. I just want to watch Back to the Future now.
New thing. Yeah, and, the plot's really accelerating now because Jake follows him to just like... as horrible as this is supposed to be, I totally imagined it as a comedy scene where Jake's like, Jake thinks Tom's going in to confront some like cholos or something from a gang. He hears cop cars like escorting them to wherever they're going. He gets out and they're at the TV station.
No, I like the thought he has real quick when the cop car starts escorting him. He thinks that his brother is like some cool 21 Jump Street police officer, like a high school police officer, like a sitcom or something.
Wow, that entered his mind. I don't think he seriously thought that.
I want to read that book.
He questioned.
I want to watch
Tom's
that sitcom
an undercover
show.
cop.
Yeah.
He's also 17 and he goes by the name Perfecto. But anyway, back to before. Yeah, like I was saying, I imagine it as a comedy scene where Jake's walking into the TV station. There's like, it sounded like there's pure chaos going on, like people shooting, and it sounds like a random shootout at the OK Corral, and it's just Axe there, like supposedly causing trouble, and Jake even gets shot at by Tom at one point. Her may or may not have seen him there. What do you think?
Yeah, it's weird. I don't think Tom saw that was Jake or anything. I think they saw movement behind whatever stand-up Jake was next to or whatever, And I think they shot at him. It's weird to me that they would shoot at someone, like they would notice someone's over there, like a possible witness, and not check to see if there's a body.
Well, yeah, it just seemed like they were in such a hurry to get to this Andalite, and they probably figured they'd have a C team on standby ready to flush in and find anybody who, wasn't already a controller and make them or off them. Either way, I felt like Jake got out of there a lot easier than he should have, really. He just kind of comes in for the tail end of the chaos and sees a car roll up with Chapman, Visa3, and our man, Controller Tobias.
I like that we get both Chapman and Melissa Chapman in this book.
Yeah, she's hanging out with Rachel. She was mentioned in the chapter where they're on the field trip.
Museum. Yeah.
Yeah, and she leaves Rachel to go to the bathroom so Marco can prey on her. And I'd like to think that at this point, after the events of book 2, if those had played out, without Rachel doing what she did, Melissa probably would have been made a controller as well. So
yeah,
she was probably leaving Rachel to go do controller things.
Not only that, think of all the things that have probably happened at this point. You've got the Yerks having a great water source that's not disrupted. Thanks to book 3. You've got, what was the plot to book 5? Marco, something
Marco, something, Space Gorilla.
beating up some people in an alleyway for pizza or something. It was a long time ago.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of events that we could list, but things played out differently here.
Yeah.
So after that whole thing shakes out, the team meets up in Cassie's barn, and it's very reminiscent of, just another Animorphs book that all these kids are getting together again.
This would be, in structure terms, this would be your ending of or maybe your middle or beginning of your second act, where you have everything built. This would be beginning of the third act. So you have the first act that's introducing everything, doing all that. You have the second act that's like, oh my gosh, there's Yerks here. I'm being infested. Tobias changes. Axe gets his plan together. Blah, blah, blah. And then you have the beginning of the third act surprise, where all the characters are right where they're supposed to be. They're back in the barn. It's great. I was excited to see them back there, and Marco jumping on his hay bale that he loves to jump on.
Yeah. It's kind of cool, once again, to see the team knowing that they'd get together. Although this is probably the point where the timeline is so corrupted that these events wouldn't have shaked out like this. These characters wouldn't have been brought together in this particular way. Right?
I agree with that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking on my summary because I changed the size and all the text.
Cassie, she keeps calling up all the memories of things she shouldn't know.
Oh, thank you for reading it word for word from my notes so that I can easily locate where we are again. That helps. That helps.
They all look to Jake to lead them. Let's do.
You want to just read the rest of this thing, and then we can freestyle it for the rest of the episode? Just speed read through my whole summary and save the people the time.
I'm simply pointing out how good the summary is. It works, even if you just read it.
I started writing these things. And you know what? I was thinking about this. Hey, if you guys are interested, seriously, hit me up on Patreon for this. This is a good idea, I think. I was going to write these full-length summaries for every book, because I pretty much have them already. I think I have them all saved still. But I was going to combine them all together and just be like, Animorphs, the summary series or something.
Well, yeah, dude, save that. We can sell that on Amazon as like an unofficial fan guide.
Sure. Well, if you're going to be a Patreon subscriber, you'll get a copy for free. How about that?
There you go. It's still monetized.
Sure. So this is the point where they're sitting around, things are glitching out. I love the emotional aspect of this too. This is really hitting Cassie very hard, as well as the rest of the team. Everybody's very disturbed. But once again, it falls to Jake to sort of lead the team and decide what they're going to do. And this being like his first attempt at being a leader, very simplistic planning. Again, he's just like, well, we'll just watch my brother for a bit, I guess, because I'm at home with him. And then, Tobias, all the meanwhile, is discovering just how bad his new life is as a controller. As he splits out on his uncle, hops in a car and goes to the local McDonald's, which, as we all know, is an entrance to the Yerk Pool. And
extra happy.
Definitely. Happy Meal. Extra happy. Always. But he's pretty much taken off guard by Visitor 3 immediately, and wouldn't you know it, Visitor 3 is just
on the pier where he's, he's hungry. He's a Yerk. He's had his 3 days. He's getting a little snack, and we're not talking about a large fry. But before he can get to the end of the pier, that's when Visitor 3's goons grab him.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. I like that description more than what I just said.
Yeah, it's the jazzed up version.
You really, I laid the bones, and then you put the meat on it.
You just described the whole podcast in a nutshell.
Totally. We should put that on a T-shirt. Mitch, the bones. Coleman,
laying the bones.
The bone layer, they call me. And you're the meat man.
I like the jazz reference more. Like you're the bone layer. I'm the musician.
If we continue the podcast, let's adopt stage names or alter egos. I'll be the bone man or the bone layer, and you be the meat man.
I want to be Marco.
No, you don't get to. But I thought it was super hilarious how Visitor 3 is like, I know what you're doing. Jig's up.
Yeah, it's not a hard ruse to, figure out.
Not really. This Yerk apparently thought he could get away with it.
And Yerk even says, like, he kind of admits that it was a suicide mission, but he's still at the end, like, he doesn't hold up to torture at all. Even the idea of torture, it immediately turns on Visitor 1. Oh, yeah, exactly. And it's very, very exemplary of the Yerks that's hardwired into them is just like, no, Cowardice.
we're gonna bend the knee wherever possible to ensure our survival. And I like this next sentence too. Now it's like an in joke because when I'm reading off my summary, but the listeners don't. But meanwhile, Jake and the team learn how hard it is to try and watch somebody without the ability to turn into animals or without their trusty eye in the sky.
Look, let's do a little game for the listeners. You ready? Next line. Ready?
Me or you?
Both.
Oh, okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Luckily, the plot finds
them via axe
on TV again.
Jake and the team.
This is not a good idea. This is not a good idea. It's just
I feel like we have at least one listener who got something out of that little
That's
gag.
not good podcasting to try and sync up our voices. It's just.
I'm having a good time.
The plot finds them, though, luckily, via axe on TV again.
Were you expecting us to use different versions of via? I said via.
Oh, no. I wasn't.
Okay.
But yeah, like I said, the plot's delivered via TV once more, and Jake and the team learn pretty much everything they needed to know about the Yerk's invasion from Axe's little broadcasted message.
But I like this. Like, they're watching Axe's invasion, and Jake is like, this feels right. Like, he's not just getting this information for the first time. It's almost reaffirming what he thought was going on, like, subconsciously, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool and it seems like this is the point where, because of Axe's actions right here, the Yerks have to really, huh?
His actions.
Oh God, I thought I misheard you. I hoped I misheard you, but I didn't, and it was awesome. Well done. But through his actions here, the Yerk invasion is substantially sped up, right?
Well, so let's break this down a little bit. So this Yerk probably came in the real series too, right? There's no reason he wouldn't have.
Sure.
And you have to assume in this timeline, maybe it's because of the host body, maybe it's because of some other factors, or because Visitor 3 was distracted by the Andalite bandits and the other timeline. And so he didn't have time to deal with the spy from Visitor 1. And so I guess he just believed it. Because it says, like, so the spy, he's delaying Visitor 3 and going in open warfare because the Council of 13 is going to agree with Visitor 1 and keep things as an invasion, like a secret invasion. But in this timeline, Visitor 3 isn't distracted by the Andalite bandits, so he can, he figured this guy's plan out earlier.
Right, yeah.
So it really shows how much the Animorphs were doing in the other timeline.
Yeah, and slowing them down.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sure, because the invasion had been just exacerbated to the point where at the end of this thing, they're flying bug fighters around in the street, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, which we're talking about in the early books too, like books 1 through 9. The Animorphs didn't even know what they were doing half the time. They were failing missions, but just their presence, just a rebellious presence on Earth, distracted Visitor 3 long enough that Visitor 1 could get the Council of 13 on her side and declare an actual proclamation on keeping this a secret invasion. That's pretty cool.
You know what would have been really awesome if they had time for it, is if Visitor 3 had actually captured Visitor 1 at some point in this story here towards the end and was just outright, like, this is the end, and he murders her. Like,
Yeah.
possibly, hopefully, it would occur in front of Marco, just for added effect.
Well, again, I haven't read a lot of these books in the 40s, but at some point in the next 7 books, Visitor 3 becomes Visitor 1.
Yeah, within the next, I don't know. I think that doesn't happen until like the last 3 books or something. We'll see.
I haven't read that, and I've read the last 3 books, and I never read that happening.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know.
Whenever it
happens.
gets out in the open, whenever they run away with their families, I never read that book.
Oh,
So-
okay. Well, we'll be getting to it shortly, I believe.
That's exciting.
But either way, the plot's in full swing now, and because of X's constant interruptions, Tom is just freaking out. He overhears Jake and the team kind of talking about what they're going to do next, and he knows they're up to no good, so he forcefully tries to take Jake and Marco to go be infested, and it leads to like this struggle.
Successfully, for the most part.
Wow, oh my God! Until Rachel comes and beats the shit out of him with a baseball bat.
Oh yeah, but he cold cocks Marco, and he's got Jake by the little hairs. And he would have gotten him in the car or whatever if Rachel hadn't shown up with a baseball bat, which that's just awesome. Just, things are happening, trouble's about, Rachel decides to grab a baseball bat and go over to Jake's house. That's awesome. That is Rachel in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, without morphing powers, that's what they got to rely on for now. However, this little short-lived victory of theirs is kind of ruined by the fact that a bug fighter just shows up in their little suburban neighborhood and starts blasting away at 3 kids.
I don't fully understand why this bug fighter was focusing on them.
Oh, neither do I, man. This is my one biggest WTF. This actually doesn't make sense. This felt like a hard wrap of the story here, where they're like, okay, suddenly attack.
Like, okay, so if Tom had made a call and told them that, like, okay, these 2 kids, possibly 3, these 2 kids now know our secret. We got to get them. So I could understand if a group of human controllers rolled up and tried to grab them or something. But if you're throwing bug fighters out there that people can see, then there's no reason to shoot these kids because your secret's out in the open anyway.
Well, yeah, I don't know what their thinking was as well, unless Tom overheard, and I don't think he overheard them mention anything about Andalites specifically or Axe over the phone. I don't think Jake.
Well, if he
said
heard
anything
Cassie's
like that.
side, if he picked up another phone and he heard Cassie's side of things, she says that we should know this Andalite.
Oh, really? Okay.
So that would be a big deal.
Right. It wasn't made explicit whether Tom heard that part of the conversation or not, but thinking that they're maybe in cahoots with the Andalites, or maybe they were replaced by Andalites, might draw down a bug fighter.
Yeah, they could be Andalites in Morph.
Exactly, and Tom doesn't know. He doesn't want to take that chance. So I don't know. It just seems very out of nowhere that this bug fighter shows up to start blasting away at 3 kids, and we get Jake, Marco, and Rachel all running for their lives, and then out of nowhere, Marco's just killed.
Yeah, no, I like this. This is something that goes back to if you're a Joss Whedon fan from way back day. He hasn't made anything good recently, but if you're a fan of his Buffy series or even Dollhouse, Lord help you, he was very big on deaths of main characters being just random occurrence, because that's how people die in real life, especially in war scenarios. Like, there's no big fanfare or slow motion or anything. People just die suddenly, and then you just have to move on, especially in like a war scenario. And I love that happens at the end of this book multiple times.
Yeah, it felt very much like Megamorphs 3, actually. And that's probably why it had less of a shock value.
Okay, Applegate comes back. She's just got to ruthlessly kill these kids in the worst way possible.
If that hasn't already happened. But yeah, it's because of Megamorphs 3 and how effective it was there, because it was Jake getting shot in the head out of nowhere. Here it's Marco, and he's just kind of caught in the aftermath of one of the explosions, and unlike Cassie, who gets vaporized later, Marco leaves a body still laying there. They're like actually running, and they're just like Marco's just laying on he's laid out on his back, and they know he's dead. You know, it doesn't say he's dead, but they say he's on his back. We got to keep running. I
assumed there was a very visible wound. Otherwise, Jake wouldn't have just moved so fast. Like, it wasn't just like, we got to check if he's breathing or something. He could have been in, like, multiple pieces or something.
Sure, yeah. And, you know, we've got Axe, who's wandering around Circuit City, because he heard that was the hip place to go for technology or something, I guess.
Now, for our younger listeners, that's like a Best Buy, but with bad money handling.
Do our younger listeners know what a Best Buy is? It's like a store version of an Amazon. Okay?
Well, do they even know what Animorphs is? That's the question.
I don't know. Why are they listening?
Who
to
are
this
you?
Podcast? Who are you? What Sario Rip did you travel through to get to this podcast? And you know, Axe is he's chilling out. He's doing his own thing. He's like a kid plotting his next move, like you said. And I imagine him like stepping out front the Circuit City doors, and then the blade ship just like merges into traffic and drives by. Because that's basically what happened.
Along those lines, yeah.
So yeah,
I love this. I love the scene of all the leftover Animorphs hanging out at the mall. They can't talk to their parents. Cassie had to leave her parents. Cassie's parents are like begging her to come back, but they could be taken at that point. Cassie just has to deal with that. And they're just hanging out at the mall food court, just trying to figure out, like, do we need to go on the run? Like, what are our lives now?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then you see, like, just like the best scenes of like the start of like a zombie invasion or something, we get this like perfectly normal scene that's interrupted by Hork-Bajir and the start of the real Yeerk invasion.
Yeah, and I like that it's prefaced by, they say, because this broadcast potentially went out to like all of America, maybe all the world, and they're even like, President Clinton, is saying, we don't need to be alarmed, but we're going to mobilize our military. That was probably
was that a Nixon?
No, that was more Mitch McConnell than fucking Bill Clinton. But it's whatever. He's not important anymore. It's a good reference. And it was a good impression.
That?
Shut up.
You hear that, Republicans? The Clintons aren't important anymore.
Yes, because so many active Republicans are listening to the Animorphs podcast.
There's probably a few out there.
Don't care. Anyway.
So we brought up religion and politics in this podcast so far. Most popular episode, easily.
Yeah. It's a good one.
It's the last Megamorphs book. We gotta pull out all the stuff.
I do like, though, that you pointed out it is very much like a zombie outbreak movie or whatever, where they're sitting around chilling, thinking about how bad their life is now, when all the people are like flocking to the entrance. They see something cool or something whatever, and I think this is very realistic, because if aliens were Hork-Bajir were about to walk in, there'd be people with their phones out going, "Oh, what the hell, man? I gotta get close to it." And they know what's up right away, and they're out of there bolting, running through the mall, relying on Rachel's expertise to know what stores are the best to hold up in.
Yeah, well, no, I love that. Yeah, you have the Hork-Bajir coming towards the entrance or whatever. That's why Riz ran away. But then for us longtime fans, I assume everybody reading the 4th Megamorphs books of the series, you have Hork-Bajir spilling out of the gap too in the Yeerk entrance, and it's just great.
Callbacks abound, for sure. So they're running away, and along the way they managed to pick up some dropped Dracon beams, and so now they're armed with guns and they're just blasting away. And this is really, I think, the first time we've seen the team actively rely on firearms.
Well, they can't morph.
No, exactly. So they had to give them some other self-defense mechanism, some kind of murder mechanism. Ooh, that should be a metal band if it's not already.
Ooh.
Well, anyway, they find Axe, who's of course always around when they need him. Definitely not worthy of parentheses, but full on Animorph treatment.
Mm.
And this is where Cassie sort of is like, "Oh yeah, hey Axe, what's up?" and they figure something's afoot. But Axe isn't really a team player, like you said. So he's just kind of like, yo, take me to the roof. We got to get to this roof. And I'm going to pack in as many accents now. You better enjoy it, mother effer.
It's all I've ever wanted from this podcast.
Impressions abound. And so they're storming the roof. And this is where, for me, it felt like the plot was really hardlining towards a conclusion here. Stop me if I'm barreling through it too fast.
Not as everybody, getting together and meeting up for the most part. But I love their interactions are so similar but yet different than they would be if they were the Animorphs. Once they meet Axe, he's back to his condescending self, even though he's working with them because they saved him.
They do a good job of leaving their memories unintact.
Yeah, well, that's got to be hard to do when you're used to writing these characters and how they should be or how they've evolved. But I love the Axe taking the Dracon beam from Jake.
Yeah, that was cool.
He's like, well, you've already lost him twice. I mean, three times.
He gets to show off his handy tail work.
Yeah,
good for him. It's like the one time Axe gets to feel badass about something. Mm-hmm. But at this point, the plot is just kind of like, get on the ship. So they're storming the Blade ship, which is inexplicably just parked on the mall roof. And Hork-Bajir are coming at them left and right, and they're running up this entrance ramp to get on the ship. And really cool, from Rachel's perspective, scene of her just outright, I think, being decapitated. That's my gruesome interpretation.
I took it as just like throat slit, because that's something that would like mess up her face and like maybe like two Hork-Bajir blades at the same time or something.
No, dude, because it said she. Oh man, I wish I could read it again. I don't know what chapter it was. I could probably find it.
It's just there. No, you keep talking. I'll read it.
What?
You did enough dramatic readings.
No, I haven't. I'm gonna do more dramatic readings, I think.
Read them 3. We don't need a Rachel impression right now.
Oh, we absolutely do. Hang on. I'm flipping. Oh, I found it.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, come on. Where are you going from?
Yeah. Okay, so
oh no,
you're good. I got it. Okay, there was a ramp leading up into the ship, 50 yards, and not a Hork-Bajir in sight, not a guard. Of course not. Why bother? What kind of an idiot was going to try and run toward that ship? Our kind of idiot. The Andalite kicked up the gravel. We raced behind him. Something was coming down the ramp. Choo! Now nothing was coming down the ramp. Under the shadow of the ship, we hit the ramp. Hork-Bajir above us. Choo! More aiming at us. Yeah! I screamed and lunged. I felt the wind off the Hork-Bajir arm as it blew past me. I never felt the wrist blade. I hit the corrugated steel floor, rolling onto my side, saw bright lights and moving shapes. The movements grew slower, stop. See, I feel like that's a throat slit.
No, that's definitely her head got lobbed off and it rolled onto the floor. And she saw some lights and shapes, and then everything just kind of slowed until it stopped and faded out. Ooh.
No, because she says, I hit the corrugated steel, rolled onto my side. That means she's still connected to her body.
It's a children's book, dude. They can't say my head rolled.
I don't know. We'll see. Let's say if it's like, if she just got really hurt and she's like bleeding out of carotid artery. Oh, what is that? Carotid artery?
I don't know. Don't suggest things you can't pronounce.
If she just got like a major artery slit or something and she's bleeding out, I'd say that's written by K. Applegate. If she got decapitated, that's a Michael Grant influence right there.
Hey, leave it up to interpretation. What do you say, folks? Hit us up in the comments, like and subscribe.
Hit up a Twitter poll. Do you think Rachel got her head chopped off? Yes.
Or do you think it was just a good old-fashioned throat slash? A good old-fashioned throat slashing. I like that.
Yeah.
Hashtag.
It's a good band name, too.
Oh, good old-fashioned throat slashing. That's the new album from Murder. What was the one I said before?
Don't say things you don't remember.
That's not what my rule was. You know nothing of my belief structure.
Okay, moving on. Rachel's dead.
The good times are rolling on. Yeah, they're storming the Blade ship, making it to the bridge.
I like that. So, okay, this book came out before the ending of the series. it's kind of
Obviously.
cool. I don't know if this was intended. But the fact it's cool that in both timelines Rachel dies, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, they all kind of
It's
have
like she
had
was
their
destined.
deaths.
Yeah, but she's like destined to die.
I mean,
It's-
hasn't everyone kind of had a death scene, basically?
Not yet, just Marco and Rachel. And now about Cassie.
Jake died.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Jake died. And, Marco has had so many near-death experiences that they basically amount to a bunch of deaths. So
Yeah. He's gotten his like stomach ripped open or almost cut in half at least like 5 times.
Oh, yeah. So many injuries. So, yeah, far less shock value, I think. And now, after the death of Marco, I'm like, oh, okay, well, now that Jake's going to watch all of his friends go, because that's, how they're going to torment him more. And there's a little scene, a little confrontation, sort of, with Visitor 3. It's kind of scuffled over, and they gain control of the ship pretty quick. However, another thing that happened pretty quick is, like I said earlier, Cassie gets Dracon beamed out of existence and is disintegrated there.
Well, yeah, it's crazy. So Rachel just died, and they're running up the ramp, and Jake has a great line where he's like, "Look what they did to my beautiful cousin," or whatever. And then it says that he felt a sizzle in his hand, and then let go of the hand that wasn't there anymore. That was a great line.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in the line about I felt. I made a whimper sound. I didn't try to.
He moaned. He says
yeah.
he was moaning.
Yeah, so he's
Crazy to
like
think
just
of Jake, the fearless
so
leader.
disturbed. Exactly.
Yeah. But this interaction with Visitor 3 is great because, Axe and Visitor 3 are like sharing their back and forth like they do all the time in the series. And they're about to tail fight, and Axe is probably about to get super messed up. And then Cassie comes back.
Yeah.
She's alive,
and
everyone.
then the brakes screech to a halt.
How great is it that Cassie's the one who kills Visitor 3 in this timeline? That's awesome.
Yeah. Recount to me exactly what happens now. So it's a big jumble of action. It seems like it's leading to something like Axe is going to finally achieve their goal of blowing up the Yerk mothership with using the blade ship, which is pretty rad. It just goes to show that maybe, just maybe, if the Animorphs hadn't formed, somehow Axe could have. Well, I don't know if he could have stormed the blade ship.
It seems like
but...
no. It seems like Axe would have died here in this attack on the pool ship.
Oh,
but
definitely.
He would have successfully destroyed the pool ship. And
no, I don't think he would have succeeded there. I think Visitor 3 would have taken Axe out before he could have succeeded in destroying the dome ship.
No, because specifically they say that in this timeline, they would have won faster.
Yeah, they do. The droid does mention that coming up here at the end. But take us through this scene where Cassie's the one who gets the win.
Yeah,
for
Cassie
Visitor.
reappears, shoots Visitor 3 in the face, and he dies. And as she comes back, you hear the droid come in. His voice. First, his voice comes in, and he's freaking out. And
He's a
like,
rage
no,
quitter.
that's not how it's supposed to be. And they all hear it, but they're kind of like they're still focused on what they're doing. And Jake and them are freaking out because Cassie's back. This is awesome. And you hear the droid rambling on as Axe is explaining what he's going to do with destroying the pool ship and taking them into orbit. And then Marco reappears, and he's in Gorilla Morph.
Yeah, for some
And
reason.
the droid again is like, "What? What's a gorilla there? What's going on? Why are we doing this?"
I love your interpretation so much more than the actual how it played out.
And it gets to the point where everyone comes back, and Marco's back in his more human morph, his real body, whatever. And
so, Marco pulling human morph.
and the droid actually shuts everything down. Before Axe can destroy the pool ship and attack it, droid puts a stop on life and existence. And this is where the Limus shows up, and we actually figure out what's been going on.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It takes a while for their memories to snap back into place here, but once
I
they
like
do,
that you have the droid and the Limus talking about it before they get their memories back, and then suddenly they get it back, and Oh man, that might be the most messed up part of the entire book. Is Jake realizing that this is all his fault? Everybody died because of him. His worst fears coming to reality. You got Tobias there realizing that he would have become a voluntary host to a Yerk almost, if not for his cowardice once he was about to, pull the trigger on becoming a full member. You got Marco and Rachel. They almost dated, which really hits Rachel hard.
Yeah. It's kind of another little humorous callback.
I like that.
There.
Yeah, I like that little comedy moment when Jake and Tobias are about to kill themselves for their decisions.
Yeah, it's probably a lot better that Tobias ends up forgetting this whole incident anyway.
Oh yeah, and then, because they explain what Cassie is. She's this this kind of hook in reality, like a grounding point.
Yeah. By the way, like I said earlier, this came out of nowhere. This is so, I feel, random, like them trying to make Cassie special, because everybody on the team has their own like real plot line, And
I don't think it's that random though. It's explained in this book. The limits stack the deck. I think it happens to be.
Yeah,
Cassie.
in fact, I'd like to read a portion now in a
go
very
ahead.
dramatic reading.
Go for it.
This is where, like you said, the Drode and Elamist are having a little talky talk. She's a freak of nature, the Drode screamed. The Elamist nodded. Yes, she is. Marco said, what is going on here? He was no longer a gorilla. I'm pretty sure I was dead, then I'm a gorilla. Oh, I see it now, the Drode said, ignoring Marco, ignoring all of us. Subtle as always, Elamist. Your meddling came before, didn't it? How could we not have seen it? Elfangor's brother, his time-shifted son, this anomalous girl here, and the son of Visor One's host body, a group of 6 supposedly random humans that contains those 4. You stack the deck. His list here is super interesting, for how special these particular characters are, and the random coincidences that led them all together to form the Animorphs, like he said.
Which you could have been. This actually helps the book series a ton, because you could have been reading through these books and those coincidences start piling up. That these are the Animorphs, the son of Elfangor, the brother of Elfangor, all these different things that make them special. Could have, hurt the series overall, just sounding like a bunch of Mary Sues and Deus Ex Machinas and stuff, that coincidences piling up. But this book solves that. This is all the Elemis' meddling. This is why he cares so much about the Animorphs. This is why they're so important to his plan. And the fact that this is one of his teams, one of his, throughout the universe, the pawns that he's playing with, this is one he really cares about, and that's why he stacked the deck and picked these people.
What's even more interesting that I thought about here from this, my big takeaway, is that Jake and Rachel are not special. Really, in any sort of way. We know that. Wait. Let me keep going.
Go ahead.
We know that Rachel is losing her grip on, not her humanity necessarily, but that's kind of what they're alluding to, is her rage, her deep-seated rage, and just all of her negative emotions taking control of her, and her basically becoming a bad person. That's her whole thing. And for some reason, Krayak is super interested in Jake. He wants to be BFFs with him for some reason. And I don't know if that's addressed as to why necessarily, but that's the one way I could think of that makes Jake special, is because he's a target to Krayak.
Well, no, here's how I break down the team. So you've got these 3 that are special. You have Cassie, who's incredibly important if Krayak was ever going to make the move to time shift events in some way, which that makes total sense. This has happened multiple times with the Elemis and Krayak, where they're messing with timelines. So it makes sense for him to have a Cassie nullifier on the team. Marco, son of Visor One, obviously that's important to them interacting with the Yerks and their fight against them. That gives him some insight, or gives him some edge to have that connection with Visor One.
Doesn't correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not sure about this, but doesn't Visor One eventually join them and sort of work with the Yerk peace movement? I honestly I can't remember.
I don't remember.
I can't remember Visor One's fate from the.
If that happens,
ending.
I didn't read that book. But no, like continue real quick. You have Tobias, son of Elfangor. You have Axe, brother of Elfangor. Those are important just for that connection and that what it means for the Resistance and their connection to Andalites. And then Cassie or Rachel and Jake, I feel like they're important because he needed to fill out this team with what it still needed. So you have the people who he picked right off the bat for very specific reasons, but then you still need someone to lead them. And I think he chose someone who was close to Marco, who had that leadership type quality in them. And that's where Jake fits in. And because Jake is leader of the Animorphs, that's why he becomes important to Krayak. And then you have Rachel. You have Rachel, Rachel has the connection to Cassie, which helps, bring them together. And Rachel's also the brute force. You need a warrior on the team. And that's Rachel. You need someone who's just going to go in and kick ass.
Oh, dude, I so want to do an Alternamorphs episode or series or something where it's like an alternate timeline, and in this one everything's the same except Jake and Rachel's roles were reversed, and Rachel was like the calm, level-headed leader of the group, and Jake was like the brute who was just like, I want to get in there and dominate, like he could be the dumb jock, like real brute that Rachel has to keep in line. Like that would be
one of the reasons,
excellent alternative.
One of the reasons, and we've talked about it before on the podcast, so I don't care about bringing it up now. One of the reasons I really like our idea for continuing the series with Rachel as having her own team.
Whoa, man! I don't think we ever said anything about that recorded.
We did. We actually have. We absolutely have.
Either way, I don't want to talk about it now.
Well, I've already brought it up. I'm not going to edit this part out.
Just keep it to a minimal. Your comments.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. If you want to stop it, just continue on.
I gotta let you know my feelings.
I like the idea of Rachel in a leadership role and being a different type of leader than Jake. Because you always have that kind of confrontation between her and Jake of like, well, you can't boss me around, or who made you leader, or blah, 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 and her thinking she could be leader too. And we've seen her take that role a couple times. But I feel like she actually could be a good leader in a different way, which is why I like it so much. Anyway, so that's how I think the group fits together and why they work so well. And I would love to see a timeline where I feel like, just to bring up another Animorph, I feel like David, if he could have existed within this group, he would have been like the super ruthless, does whatever they need done, that the others aren't willing to do. Kind of like a mix of Rachel and Marco, this like kind of snide character.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the possibilities are endless for lots of cool stuff to happen. I mean, if they'd have even done a one-off book where the characters, the cast, switched personalities, like that'd be super interesting to see. What about, Marco and Cassie switch personalities, Jake and Rachel switch personalities, Tobias and Axe switch personalities? Like it could lead to some funny moments.
So basically, to add to our I want that book list, would be about 6 to 7 Back to Before Megamorphs books.
I want a book where they all end up having to morph each other for various reasons, and then they can't keep straight who they're talking to because they get the morphs so messed up. And eventually it's like Cassie going to Rachel and being like, hey, Marco, I need something. And then Rachel being like, what? This is Axe. Aren't you Jake?
Wait, am I Axe?
Tobias flies by. I'm Marco. Look at me. Anyway,
Tobias becomes a Nothlit in somebody else's body.
Was there any more to this book? Are we done talking? No. The timeline's collapsing. With nothing left, to do with the story, they put you back at the scene from the beginning where Jake, is coming off that hard-fought battle. It's the exact same writing, in fact.
Yeah, they spent a whole chapter copy and pasting the beginning to the end.
Sure.
There's like some slight differences, but yeah. And then you got Jake, and you see how that scene plays out. Jake is told what he needs to do to make everything go away. He's about to say the words, and then the droid's like, "Screw it, I'm out of here." I love that ending. That he's just like, "Never mind."
It felt very like Doctor Who-ish almost.
Yeah,
In that, like, things were about to play out the same way, you know? Like, I don't know why he just didn't even start with the tempting, you know? If he knew he was going to pull out of it, why even start with it?
Because that's when I feel like that's when the timelines diverge.
Just the joke, but
yeah.
Or that, yeah. Maybe the timelines snap back together there. But either way, you know, that wraps up the book. Real quick before we move on to our reviews or say much else, there was one passage in here that I didn't get to it at the time we were actually talking about it plot-wise, but I want to go back to it now.
Are we trying to break a record for dramatic readings in this episode?
I'm told people like them. So this was a little bit from Tobias, just kind of his internal monologue at one point. It's really about, you know, his struggle against bullying, but I think you could take it and look at it as a message about, like, just life in general, anything. Suicide in particular comes to mind when I read this. But I just want to read it out loud, and you take what you take from it. I liked it a lot, and I hope you do too. Even now, no easy answers leap to mind. I could not easily have stood the bullying. I could not have easily survived the loneliness. In my fantasies, I could construct fantastic escapes, but in reality, there was no easy way. My life was non-fiction, not some story where the endings are always happy. I couldn't simply become a different person. I couldn't just have some great insight that would save me from myself. All I could have done really was wait. I could have endured. I saw that now. It wasn't a dramatic answer. It wasn't exactly inspiring. Endure, outlast, outwait. I might have been able to do that. I'm not a fool. I know that school was just a part of my life. You spend 18 years as a kid, then maybe 70 years as an adult. And what you are as a kid isn't what you'll be as an adult, not always anyway. Endure. I could have done that. Boom. That like, I had to reread that a couple times. It was kind of a gut punch, honestly.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. This specific book helped me when I was younger and reading these. You know, that's nice to hear that, you know, school's not gonna last forever, and what you're dealing with then is not what you'll deal with in real life.
Yeah, totally. And they have basically this whole series been kind of ramming that message down our throat. But this was their opportunity to really come right out and say it, like, you know, be yourself. It gets better. Basically.
I would not be surprised if Tobias' story in this book was a big reason why they wanted to write this book, period.
I could almost see it going a different way if this were published in a more timely setting or something about... And this goes back to, like, way back to you and your dumb shipping theories about Jake and Tobias. But I could have totally seen this going down as Tobias, you know, starting to fall more and more for Jake here. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not trying to write my own fanfiction or anything.
It's already written.
I'm sure there's probably tons of Jake Tobias stuff.
Yeah, but how would the bullying have played in?
Well, Jake obviously saved him once, and I don't know. It sounds like he's going to save him from the sharing. So
either that, or Tobias develops some kind of S&M fantasy.
I guess. Well, that's one way to end a conflict. I don't know.
This is a one time where I think I'm just going to go ahead and say I don't want that book.
Well, too bad. You got that one. It exists, unfortunately. Now,
get our reviews. Who wants to go first?
I don't know, man. This is like, maybe we should just do like a hodgepodge kind of. We both just talk it over, and because, you know, I'm still a little divided on my numbering of this one for my rating.
I'm not at all.
I just wonder if maybe you, in this final reviewing segment, you could talk me into raising it. I don't know.
Okay, let me go first. We'll my review see. Then we won't have a talk back and forth. I like our reviews being separate so we can say our piece.
It's a bunch of bullshit, but okay.
So let me go first and let me see if I can change your mind a little bit.
Do it.
In my mind, this is everything I've wanted from a Megamorphs book. And if every single normal book could be like this series would have been an even bigger hit than it already was. This is in showing us who the Animorphs could be. it gave a clearer view of who they are in this series than any other book. You have every single character coming out as who they really are, and who are we without our powers? This is what every superhero movie is asking nowadays, and you know, it's obviously a message straight to the common man of like who you are in life is who you have to be without, you know, without the power to change it, you know, without some magical force coming into your life and making everything better. Not that the morphine really makes their lives better, but still.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It obviously does make their lives better in this scenario. No
Well, yeah, the one odd
Jake,
scenario.
Yeah, no matter what whiny Jake wants. But no, I think a book whose plot is rooted in a character choosing the easy way out, a character that we're supposed to like and lead the main force of the series. This is incredible. This is, for a kids book series, this is dealing with things. You know, say what you will about the war-torn chapters or the books that deal with really graphic stuff for a kid series. This book, I think, is trying to be way more than even those things. It's delving into the kind of story and the kind of character development that most book series, no matter whether they're for adults or children, wouldn't touch because they think it would drag too much. But this ends up being an incredibly exciting book, a very action-packed book, with no powers, without any morphine for the most part. How many other series could even come close to doing something like this? This is straight up, easily a 5 out of 5 black and white covers Animorphs book. This is the highest rating I can go, and I don't understand how it could go below that for anyone who loves these characters and loves this writing style.
No, I get you. I feel you. I have a lot of feelings about this book. Most of them are similar to yours. I like your explanations, though. They make me feel better about it. And I'll definitely admit, I mean, just calling it an amnesia story is a little broad in scale and scope. I mean, there's a lot at play here. This thing is pure magic by Animorph standards. And
can I say one final thought, just because I didn't get to react to your amnesia side of things?
Oh, sure.
So I think that there are many books, even in this series, that are an amnesia plotline. And those ones are usually fun stories that don't really matter to the overall plot.
Like the actual amnesia plotline from Megamorphs 1.
Yeah, exactly. Or things that, you know, they just want to tell an experimental story and it's not going to affect everything else. You know, those are usually lighter books. What's interesting about this one is, even though it does do what you said, like everything reverts back to at the end, this is a book of reflection, a book of cementing who these people are and looking back over at the entirety of the series and saying, this is what we were trying to say, here's a new perspective on it. So I think it's not an amnesia book, it's a reflecting book. And without changing the plot and moving us towards that end of the series, it does more for the rest of the series than any of those other books could have in their experimental stories or confined stories.
Sure. I'll give you that. And yeah, you know, this fits in at a great place in the continuity of the series. This is the point where not only has the team been holding out against the Yeerks for all this time, but they are also now starting to believe that no Andalites are coming to help them out. So the Jake that we see in the beginning that, you know, was tempted by the Drode, he's really at the end of his ropes. I mean, he's pretty resigned to the belief that he and his friends are going to die fighting the Yeerks any day now. And, you know, somebody is just like, hey, easy way out. You can make a suicide metaphor. You could. I won't. But I mean, yeah, like you said, it's a great book for reflection on the characters, looking back at what makes them who they are. I think just in hearing you talk about it and getting to talk about it with somebody definitely perked me up a bit. Reading through it, you know, when you get things hyped for you to a certain extent, sometimes it's hard to live up to what your expectations are in that hype, you know? It was definitely one of the coolest things to see the process of the sharing, how they accumulate people, where the team would be without any of this happening. Look, man, it's going where you think it is. I'm right there with you, okay?
it's a 5. It's a solid 5. 5 out of 5. I didn't even think of anything clever on this one. 5 out of 5 Drode appearances.
That's about how many times he shows up, yeah. Yeah, it's just... I had something else I was going to say about this.
No, well, that's it. Let's wrap it up.
No, I know. It's just... yeah, I can't think of it now.
Well, that's absolutely okay. If you think of it in the next second, let me know. I'm really excited about this one. I hope that I don't continue to feel as though the next book should have been the Megamorphs, because as much as I love this, every moment of this book, there were a lot of things that I felt like, well, they could have trimmed that, or they would have trimmed that if it had been a normal book.
The only reason I feel like the next one could have been a Megamorphs book is just because it goes to such a wacky place. It's so out there. As far as these books, I mean, it's more out there than the Atlantis book.
You're kidding me, because I don't know if I read the whole thing. I don't think I did read the whole thing, but all I can remember is Jake wakes up in the future where it's post-invasion. The Yeerks are successful. He and his friends are now controllers. One of them's dead, and I don't know where it goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy sci-fi book that takes place on Earth in the future. I mean, that's why it's so crazy in my mind. Showing where everybody turned out.
A horrible future.
Yeah, an absolutely horrible future. But so I did remember what I was going to say. I really wish, so the droid says at the end of this book that only Cassie will remember slightly anything that happened. I almost wish there would have been a super poignant moment in a book after this where everybody's fighting about something and somebody says something that, like, well, if the Yeerks were never here, we would have done this. And then Cassie comes out of nowhere and it's like, no, we wouldn't have. Or something like that, some really important point. That would be nice.
I remembered something that I thought would have been really funny. So, when the team finally, starts to figure things out and they go and meet up at Cassie's barn for the first time in this book. Well, they missed an opportunity. It would have been super hilarious if they were like, okay, we need to get up or get together and to talk things through. Anybody want to supply a location? And Cassie's like, oh, yeah, me. And they all go over to Cassie's, and she takes them up to her attic, which is super secluded and nice. And she's like, this is my attic. Parents are never up here. We can talk all we want. And they're like, wow, this is a really nice attic. We'll definitely meet here in the future.
That would have been great. Or if it would have been moment. Or if they were like, oh, we need a place to go. Where can we be private? And Cassie's like, well, we could go to my... And then Rachel's like, let's go over to my house.
Okay, basically the same joke as me, but yeah, good.
Yeah, I put my own spin on it.
Way to go. That's what we do now, is just copy each other's jokes in a chain until they get, so diluted.
No, you put things out there and then I edit them. That's what I do.
Hey, I'm the bone layer and you're the meat man. That's what we do.
I really don't want Meat Man to stick. If we could go anything else, that'd be great.
Ooh, Meat Man on a stick. That sounds like a merchandising opportunity, my friend.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Oh, boy. Well, thus concludes our coverage of Megamorphs number 4. The Animorphs, a.k.a. The Changelings, a.k.a. Megamorphs number 4, Back to Before. There's a lot of titles on this thing.
Yeah. Well, I had a good time. I'm pretty happy with this. Again, if you want to help us out in any way, this show takes a lot of resources, actually, to put out there and get out to you in a timely manner, which we're not always great at, but we could get better. And one of the ways that helps us get better is helping us and supporting us on Patreon. Donating just a little bit every time we put out an episode. It helps pay for the cost of the show and helps us put out a better show, honestly. You can find us at Thoughtspeakcast or patreon.com/Thoughtspeakcast.
Absolutely. And our Facebook page, we're pretty active on there as well, talking with the fans and whatnots. You can message me anytime on Patreon if you're one of our subscribers, and I will get back to you always. That's my pledge to you, nameless Patreon subscribers who are named.
Yeah, check us out on Twitter. Again, reviews and ratings on iTunes helps us out an insane amount. You have no idea. That just helps spread the word of the show and get us out there to new audiences, which I think is going to happen more and more coming up.
Absolutely. And another thing we're excited to keep incorporating are the return of some more guest host slots, potentially here in the future coming up. It's great. I always enjoy talking to my good buddy Coleman. But I think a real cool aspect of this podcast has been being able to talk with other fans that we might not necessarily get to and hear a couple other interpretations of some of these story ideas.
Yeah, and just a slight retraction. It is patreon.com/Thoughtspeak, not Thoughtspeakcast. Patreon.com/Thoughtspeak. If you want
yeah. By the way, you should make a retraction for all the times you referenced Megamorphs number 5 in the previous episode.
Yeah. I really thought this was Megamorphs number 5. Apparently, there is no Megamorphs number 5.
Apparently, that's not a thing that exists.
Get on that, Applegate. All right, we're way overdue.
Right on. Absolutely, we are.
Okay, well, we have a problem wrapping this show up. I'm going to say right now, thank you for listening. We appreciate it. I had a good time on this episode. I love these Megamorphs episodes. It's a shame we don't have any more, but we have some great books coming up. We have another Chronicles book coming out, possibly the best Chronicles book coming up. Really excited for that one. And we're coming here to the end of the series. And even though you guys have been with us a long time, I'm not going to say go away just yet. We might have more in store after we wrap up this little thing called Animorphs. So we'll talk more about that later. But for right now, I've been your host, Coleman.
And for right now, and for the future, I'll be your host, Mitchell, saying thanks for listening. Come on back.